What's going on, guys? Today's review will be the 2010 to 2013 Warner Bros. Animation and Cartoon Network series, and that is Scooby-Doo Mystery Incorporated. The show is based on the original Scooby-Doo series created by Joe Ruby and Ken Spears. Scooby-Doo Mystery Incorporated was originally aired on Cartoon Network, Boomerang, CBBC, CITV, currently airing on ITV2 in the UK, and currently streaming on HBO Max and Netflix. The show features Scooby-Doo, Shaggy Rogers, Fred Jones, Daphne Blake, and Velma Dinkley are a team of teenage mystery solvers who live in the small town of Crystal Cove, the self-proclaimed most hauntedest place on Earth. The allegedly cursed town's long history of strange disappearances and ghost and monster sightings form the basis for its thriving tourist industry. As such, the adults of the town are not happy that the kids are debunking all the supernatural goings-on that bring in so much revenue as the overwrought schemes of charlatans and criminals. In addition to the traditional cases they always solve, the team finds itself being nudged into the uncovering of a dark secret that is hidden in the past of Crystal Cove. Following cryptic hints from a faceless mystery man known only as Mystery, the gang unearths the legend of a cursed conquistador treasure, the secret history of Crystal Cove's founding Darrow family, and the mysterious, unsolved disappearance of 4 mystery-solving youths and their pet bird at the original Mystery Incorporated. As the mysteries and clues pile up, it's up to Scooby and the gang to solve the biggest mystery of them all. The writing is surprisingly very good and much better than it needed to be. Each episode is very well paced, manages to maintain the franchise's signature charm and captures the goofy and eerie tone, and this series seems to have taken notes from Zombie Island and Witch's Ghost by having a much darker, creepier, and more serious tone than any of the other Scooby-Doo shows. And while the gang encounters the usual costumed crooks, they also come across more serious villains and threats. And since this is a more story-driven series than any of the other shows, there's a very solid mystery that spans across the whole series, and manages to be very engaging with plenty of twists and turns. Not to mention every once in a while there are some neat callbacks and references to past Scooby-Doo media, though I will say the ending can be a bit of a cop-out as they pull a Deus Ex Machina. The suspense level is very high in this series, as while they are being chased by costumed crooks who are only after personal gains in most of the episodes, our heroes are also being threatened by more serious and deadly villains who have more evil and deadly intentions. And these moments can get very intense. Not to mention this series isn't afraid to kill some characters off. The humor is just what you would expect from a Scooby-Doo show, and manages to still be funny and well handled, like the witty banter, quips, and dialogue from the characters, the more silly situations the characters get themselves in, the gags, and the slapstick. And it's neat that there is still some solid humor despite being a more serious show. The show also manages to be more heartfelt than usual, as the relationship between the gang this time around is shown to be very strong, and it's also shown that they're willing to do anything to help each other and their loved ones. The animation is amazingly well done and look very solid, as the characters all have their same classic designs and more fluid movements. The backgrounds are neatly detailed and colored, and there are also some solid effects. Also worth noting is that this series has a more stylized look to it than the other shows, as the character designs and backgrounds look more angular than usual. The characters are all incredibly likable and have very solid chemistry, and they even go through some neat character development. Scooby and Shaggy are still their same lovable, goofy, and cowardly selves, and they manage to carry a lot of the show's humor by getting themselves into all sorts of shenanigans and trouble. And it's shown that they have a very strong friendship, but it can get strained at times. Fred is still a very likable and stern guy, and does have some solid character growth throughout the show in regards to his relationship with his friends, and especially Daphne and his own family. But he can be a bit too obsessed with traps, but he eventually learns to balance out his love of traps with the love he has for his friends. Velma is also still very likable, as while she is still pretty intelligent and uses her book smarts to help solve the mysteries, she's also more snarky and sarcastic, as she tends to say more witty comebacks than other incarnations, and she's shown to be more secretive, but also a bit more controlling, which is a flaw she learns to balance out. Daphne is also very likable here as she's shown to be incredibly rich, but she chooses to be friends with people who aren't as privileged as her, and she's shown to be very friendly and dependable, and she also has her fair share of snappy comebacks and remarks. The other characters introduced in this series also manage to be very likable and memorable, and this is due to their personalities and quirks, like the stern but goofy Sheriff Stone, the timid and resourceful Marcy aka Hot Dog Water, the supportive Mayor Nettles, the mysterious and morally gray members of the original Mystery Incorporated, more specifically Cassidy, Brad, Judy, and Nova, and even some legacy Scooby-Doo characters make a couple appearances, like Vincent Van Gogh and the Hex Girls. And it's also neat that unlike the vast majority of other Scooby-Doo media, we actually get to see the gang's respective parents, and while they do disapprove of their kids' mystery solving, they do care for them and just don't want anything to happen to them. While the usual costumed villains are kind of forgettable and boil down to the usual shtick, the recurring villains throughout the story are very solid and do pose a legitimate threat, hurl some wrenches into the overarching mystery, and even manage to get into the gang's heads, like the highly intelligent Professor Pericles, the two-faced Ricky Owens, the mysterious Ed Machine, the manipulative freak of Crystal Cove, and the monstrous evil entity. The voice acting is incredibly good and provides the series with stellar performances like Frank Welker as Scooby and Fred, Matthew Lillard as Shaggy reprising his role from the live-action movies and would take the role from here on out, Minty Kahn as Velma, Gray Delisle as Daphne, Linda Cardellini as Marcy, Patrick Warburton as Sheriff Stone, Vivica A. Fox as Cassidy, Louis Black as Ricky, Udo Kier as Pericles, and many more. The music for this series is amazingly well done, and really captures the show's more serious tone while also still being a bit campy and comedic. Overall, this show gets a 9 out of 10. Pretty great show of Scooby-Doo series, and best show from the modern days of Cartoon Network and Boomerang.